Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about American politics. And today I want to talk about 2025 Netflix show American Primeval and what it means for American politics. So let's get into it. All right. So what is happening and what does this show mean? So first of all, what is it? It was a absolutely spectacular 5 out of 5 stars, in my humble opinion. Um, Western. Now I love westerns. Can't get enough of them. America hates them. America does not like westerns. They do extremely poorly at the box office. They are niche content at best. America does not like westerns. Not a joke. I hear you. But Americans don't like westerns, right? What really blew me away about American Primeval, though, is American Primeval. I think it had something powerful to say about American politics and religion. So one, I was quite shocked at American Primeval. What is American Primeval? American Primeval is a piece of historical fiction, right? So it's set in the real world. It's set in our history, and then it uses historical narrative, like events that actually happened, but it tells a compelling, quickly moving story inside that. However, this thing rolls hard at Mormons. It just it really goes to town on Mormons. And it's just like, it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal on Mormons. It's just really rough on them, right? And American Primeval is the gentleman's name. Okay, so there's an actor. His name is Shea Wiggum. Okay, and by the way, spoilers for American Primeval here. Whole season, right? Whole season 1. And also, I'm not sure if this is going to get a season 2. Actually, it might, from the same way they did a season for Monster, the Dahmer thing, right? So, in that, it would say American Primeval, and then all the characters would be new, right? So it might get a season 2 from that perspective. But this thing, so Shea Wiggums plays this character who built a fort in Utah, right? And this woman comes along and she's like, I want to get me and my son from here in Utah all the way to this place. I think it was called Crook Springs, right? And he's like, listen carefully, right? You in Utah, right? We got a bunch of mountains here, right? And he draws this map on the ground, right? He draws it on a wooden floor. And he says, listen carefully, right? He's like, okay, here's an X. This is where we are. Here's another X. This is where you want to go. Between here, there are 3 things that are going to try to kill you, right? It says first, the wolves, right? Second, American Indians, right? And then third, Mormons. And I was like, what? What am I watching now, right? Because normally, I watch westerns all the time, but they don't be like, who are villains in this? Wolves, American Indians, and Mormons, right? Now most, now the reality is, so, and then you're like, well, why would these 3 separate groups try to kill this lady, right? Now, wolves, that's obvious. It's cold. They want to eat, right? So that's obvious, right? Then, where you go from there, American Indians, right? And the show was very clear. They're like, American Indians are going to try to kill white settlers, right? And the reason why is those white settlers are invading their land, right? This is for all the marbles, right? If these white settlers keep showing up and taking land, American Indians are going to end up living on reservations or less, right? And so it was very clear. It's like, hey, lady, these American Indians are going to try to kill you, right? And the reason why is you are literally coming here to take their land, right? So it was very clear on that. Last was Mormons, right? And they were like, this thing presented Mormons as straight villains, right? They were like, and so it was like, hey, in 1857, the Mormons killed 70 Americans, and then Brigham Young did everything possible to cover that up, right? Rolled hard against Mormons. Now, what's my opinion on whether Mormons were responsible for anything they said in American Primeval? I have no opinion on that subject, right? And the reason why is, they're setting this in a historical, with these historical events. And the reality is, whoever made this, they truly believed that the Mormons were straight villains, right? Now the reality is, I've been to Utah, right? And the Mormons are a very, and my take on the Mormon group, one, they're fascinating. I'm absolutely fascinated by Mormons. But this movie was like, they were murderers, they were polygamists. This show was like, Mormons were murderers, they were polygamists, and they were liars, right? That's pretty harsh. I think that's really harsh to say about the Mormons. The Mormons I've met, one, I believe I truly believe they, just my humble opinion on the subject, they worship a false god. Their Bible isn't real, and they believe in a false religion, right? Now, that's no harm, no foul there. Everybody has, I'm very fortunate to be believing the true religion and a true God, right? But I don't fault people who have been fooled, right? And so I don't believe that the Mormon Bible really is. If you read the regular Bible, it says at the end, hey, nobody adds not a jot or a tittle, right? You can't add a single letter. You can't even add punctuation to the Bible, right? And so Joseph Smith comes and goes, oh, here's a bunch of new books. Hey, dude, did you read the first one? Said you can't add anything to it, right? So my take is the Mormon, the only thing they're guilty, the only thing I would say the Mormons, I'm positive they're guilty of, is they believe in a false religion, right? If you read the regular Bible, the 66 books, at the end it goes, hey, shut it down, no more, right? And Josh Smith, like, I guess he missed the last page, right? Because, like, that means everything he wrote was wrong, right? So that's my take. But as far as all the things that this show accused the Mormons of, that's a lot, right? That is a straight villainy, right? So let's get to the politics part, right? What's the important part here? Well, I believe the reason why Netflix can get away with this show, right, and people are going to watch it and really probably not have too much trouble, is when it comes to American politics, people are like, hey, you are Protestant Christian or it don't count. Like, and I think, and this is my take, I think this is why Mitt Romney did not make it, right? Like, people do not, are polygamists, are Mormon. This show was saying Mormons are polygamists, they're murderers, and they're liars, right? And I think most Americans would be like, two of those ain't true, but one of them is true, right? Like, you're like, like, and so that's the problem. So I think most Americans look at Mormons and go, hey, we think you guys are great in Utah. You guys got a nice thing going there, but we don't want any of this noise anywhere else in the country. And so I think Mitt Romney was doomed from the start from that one thing of being a Mormon, right? And so then, and then the other thing is, like, well, Joe Biden is Catholic, and Americans first of all, they've only elected 2 Catholics, right? John Kennedy, and America killed him, right? And then Joe Biden, and guess, trust and believe, that ain't going to help Americans want another Catholic president. That was an abominable 4 years. Absolutely horrible, right? Everybody's like, was it the fact that he was a Democrat or the fact that he was Catholic that made that 4 years a living nightmare? And people were like, you know what? I ain't going to parse the difference. I don't want either one, right? So that Biden as president did not help Americans trust a Catholic president, right? So honestly, I think that the takeaway in my humble opinion, on American Primeval, I watched this thing, I was like, whoa, they rolled really hard at Mormons. That seemed like almost unfair how hard they rolled at Mormons in that, right? But I think the reality is where we end up, where we land, right, is that when it comes to American politics, Americans are like, you Protestant Christian or you are nothing. We ain't taking atheists, we ain't taking Mormons, we ain't taking Catholics. It's Protestant Christian, period. End of sentence, right? You might be able to play in the Methodist space or in the Episcopal space or the Presbyterian space, but we ain't having nothing else, right? And I'm not even saying that's right. I'm not even saying that's the way it should be. I'm just saying I think that's the way it is, because they rolled so hard against Mormons in this show. I was shocked, right? Like, I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, that seemed like you painting them as villains, right? Like that, you painting them as stray villains, right? And so it was kind of shocking, but I do think the reason that that Netflix is going to get away with this is Americans, when it comes to politics, they're like Protestant Christian or nothing, right? And I think that's a concrete reality. And I want to say at the end here, that's what I'm saying is. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, right? I'm an evangelical Christian. I'd love every president to be evangelical Christian, right? The reality is, I'm not sure we ever had an evangelical Christian president, even once. Maybe Jimmy Carter. I don't know, right? And I'll tell you right now, I do not believe that President Trump is Christian. Wait a second, Scott. What do you mean President Trump ain't Christian? They asked him. They said, "Hey, how can we? You're a Christian, right? How did you become a Christian?" They asked President Trump. They said, "Hey, are you Christian?" And his answer was, "Of course I'm Christian. I go to church." Any Christian worth his salt will tell you going to church don't make you Christian. Right? That is not the right answer, buddy. Right? Like, yeah. In fact, that all that assures is that you are not a Christian. If you think what makes you a Christian is going to church, you are dead wrong. You clearly ain't read those Bibles you're selling. Right? So that's my take. I think that's the takeaway from American Primeval, is that for American voters, you are Protestant, Christian, or nothing. Nothing. We don't take anybody else, period. And I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I'm saying that's the way it is. And the only reason why I'm saying that I'm saying that's not particularly the way it should be is I do love America and I want everybody represented. I would like evangelical Christians to be like half or 3/4 of the presidents, but I don't want everybody else shut out of leadership, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.